The New Mexico eviction notice. What is an eviction notice? Eviction notice, or notice to quit, is a letter sent by the landlord to the tenant notifying them that they should either take or stop a certain action or vacate the rented premises. Eviction notice can be of two types. Conditional, when a tenant is given time to remedy the breach of the lease, or unconditional, when a landlord terminates the lease without any alternative options for a tenant. What should an eviction notice include? Information about the tenant and the landlord. The reason for sending the notice. The date by which the tenant should take or stop a certain action. The consequences of non-compliance. The date and way of notice delivery, and the landlord's signature in the form of certificate of service attached to the notice. How to evict a tenant in New Mexico. The non-payment notice. There is no statutory grace period for rent payment in the state of New Mexico. This enables the landlord to send the notice to the tenant the very next day after the rent is due, unless otherwise stated in the lease. In the state of New Mexico, landlord should send a 3-day notice to pay before evicting the tenant for non-payment. Non-compliance notice. If the tenant violates other terms of the lease, a notice to correct the violation or quit, giving the tenant 7 days before the lease is terminated, should be sent. However, when it comes to violations that involve illegal activity, a 3-day written notice is required by New Mexico law before termination of the lease. What if the tenant fails to comply? If the tenant fails to comply with the rules of lease, the landlord can file a complaint with the appropriate New Mexico district or magistrate court. The fee, depending on the county, for instance, in Bernalillo County, is $132. The tenant should be served with a summons and complaint by the person over 18 who is not part of the hearing 7 to 10 days before the court hearing. If the tenant wants to contest the eviction, they should appear at the hearing, or otherwise the court will rule in favor of the landlord by default. If the landlord wins the case, a writ of restitution will be issued. According to such an order, the tenant is given from 3 to 7 days after the court decision to leave the premises.